Good morning. Today is Friday, the 9th day of Cheshvan, and we're continuing in the chapter 26, the letter 26 of Igeret Hakodesh in Tanya. As we discussed the last few days about the Alter Rebbe explaining the Zohar, what it means when that it says in the Zohar that when we study the Kabbalah is considered the tree of life, while the learning of the revealed part of the Torah is considered the tree of knowledge of good and bad. So in the last few days we discussed this, what it means. Obviously, the Torah, any part of the Torah is considered tree of life. It's the Torah of Hashem. And we explained yesterday like the difference between a teacher and an educator. What the Frierdiker Rebbe explains in his book, Klali Chinuch V'Adracha, the rules of education and guidance, that sometimes there's two ways of teaching a child. Is teaching the academics, teaching the Torah, academical part of the Torah, the logical part of the Torah. But then there is an educator who's talking about educating, really going into the child's character and understand how to improve and form and shape the child. And it's not just a child, it's even adults as well. When you need to deal with the character of a person, which is a day-to-day struggle, as it says in Tehillim, it says, the wicked person, the wicked one, stands constantly and he waits for the tzaddik, for the righteous one, and he's like someone standing with a gun and trying to kill him. So that's what the Yetzer Hara does. And there is many different ways where the Yetzer Hara always finds ways to get the person down, and the person finds himself in very dark places. And the educator knows how to go down to these places and deal with the individual situations, which many times it's very dark situations, and you have to go down there and deal with this in this level. So the educator needs to go down much, much lower. But in order to go down so low, you need to be very, very high. You need to be connected at a very high level to be able to deal with the lowest levels. And this is what it calls it. It says that that learning of the revealed part of the Torah is called the learning of it's the tree of good and the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Not that the Torah, God forbid, is good and bad, but it deals with good and bad. And therefore, it's considered the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Now, the Rebbe continues today, in today's lesson, and he's telling us an amazing thing. What happens in heaven when we study Torah? What happens in heaven when we study Torah? It says that when we deal with questions in the Talmud, sometimes you ask yourself in the Talmud, there's so many questions, so many complications. Any part of the revealed part of the Torah, you until you get to the clarity of halacha, what is the law? If you ever study Talmud, you'll see this one says this, and this one says that. There's a contradiction from here, a contradiction from there. There's all kinds of, it's a complicated study. And until you get to the clarification, It's like you're working in a dark room. When you're working in a dark place, you don't know where's the light, where's the truth. So the questions that we deal with, and using our logic, we come and we answer those questions, we clarify. This, what it does in heaven, it elevates those godly sparks that are down in here, in this world, that the klippus, the shell, the other side tries to conceal it through the questions. And when we come up with the answer, it brings up the light above there. It's like we are redeeming those godly sparks through our Torah study. And that's why it says that even the higher tzaddikim, the neshamas, the malachim, in the higher worlds, they're waiting to see what happens down here. When we study Torah down here, when the chachamim, the sages in this world, in this physical world, study and they clarify and they remove the questions that may rise, and they reveal the truth, they reveal the Torah, they're waiting for us to come to reveal the Torah. And it's only us that we can do this because we are in the lowest place. We deal with the darkness. We are able to break. We have the challenges that we have. Every time we break away from the evil, we subjugate our Yetzer Hara, and we go against his attempt to drag us down. Doing so, and studying the Torah, we open up the light, not only for us but also in heaven. That's an amazing thing what happens when we study Torah. That's why, the Rebbe always encouraged people, even young students in yeshiva, the Rebbe always encouraged that they should not only study the Torah, but they should also write down all the ideas that comes to their mind, questions, new answers that in their mind they understand certain parts of the Torah in certain ways. They should write down their chidushim, their innovations in the Torah. Obviously, it has to be based on the solid premise of the Torah. You cannot make up your own stuff, but based on the rules. When you study Torah, it's like we say by davening every morning, 3 times a day, we say, V'sein chalkeinu b'seirasecha. We're asking Hashem should give us our share in your Torah. That every neshama, every Jew has a share in the Torah. And when you study the Torah and you come and you understand and you ask a question and you clarify something that was not clear, that brings up that godly spark that was in the Torah is being elevated. That's what it says. There's the story that says our sages tell us about Moshe Rabbeinu. When God showed him the future generations, he showed him Rabbi Akiva, and he was listening into Rabbi Akiva's teaching from the future, and he heard some Torah that he was teaching that Moshe Rabbeinu himself was not aware of, and he felt very bad until he heard one of the students asking Rabbi Akiva, "How do you know this?" Rabbi Akiva says, "This was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on the Mount Sinai," and that's when he felt better. So, in other words, Moshe Rabbeinu received everything, but being that Moshe Rabbeinu was there up in the higher levels, he received everything in general. But the time has not yet come to reveal that particular law. And every generation, as we go down dealing with lower levels, we reveal more and more details. So every generation reveals more light. Ultimately, everything was given by Hashem, but it comes and is being revealed through us. So this is the amazing thing what happens in heaven when we study Torah down here. So let's see how the Alter Rebbe continues this, explains this inside. This is the Alter Rebbe. Ve'amaskil yovin inyan pele godel mizeh me'od. It says, now the intelligent will understand something far more remarkable. Manase b'shamayim imal, what happens in heaven above, al yedei iyun ubiru alocha pesuka min hagemara upoiskim rishonim ve'achronim. What happens in heaven above through the liberation and elucidation of an adjudged ruling of the Gemara and the earlier and later codifiers. So when a Jew studies the Torah and he reveals and he clarifies a part in the Torah, something happens not only here but in the heaven above as well. It says, Masha hoya behelem dava koydem ayin alaz, which was before the deliberation, has been concealed. So that godly spark, that godly light, was concealed before the sages down here deliberate and clarify this halacha. Ki al yidei zeh ma'ale halacha zu me'aklipos shoyu ma'alimim u'mechasim oisa. So by means of this clarification, one elevates this ruling from the klipos in the shells that hide and cover this light, Sheloi oisa yadua kalal, which was not known at all. Sometimes halacha comes up or was not known. Or that its reasoning was not clearly understood. So for the reason underlying a particular halacha, it derives mystically from the sephira of the supernal chachma. Just like we said, in order to deal with the darkest places, you need to come from a very high place. So the sephira, the attributes of chachma, the supernal chachma, supernal wisdom, is the source where the reason derives from. From which sparks fell into the klippos as a result of the primordial breaking of the vessels. This we explained yesterday, that when God created the world, He created first a very powerful, intense world full of energy, of godly energy, godly light. Such godly light was not capable to be settled in vessels, to be sustained, and therefore what the Kabbalah explains, it was something which is called the Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. And those godly energy, the sparks of godly energy fell down into the lowest places, which is called the klippos. The klippos is the shells that covers and conceals godliness. And again, our job is to elevate them, to refine them. Part of it is through doing the mitzvahs, dealing with the material things in this world. When we use anything, we make a bracha, we eat something, the godly spark is elevated. When we subjugate our evil inclination, we also elevate those sparks that lies there. And the same thing is also when we study Torah and we come across certain questions. The questions is from the darkness. And we deal with it and we clarify it and it brings up and we open up this, reveals those godly sparks. That's what Alter Rebbe says, Veheim sham b'bchinas galus. And they are there in a state of exile. The godly spark is a state of exile. Shaklipa is sholtim alayim, because the klip is rule over them. Umalim im chochmas haTorah, and they hide the wisdom of the Torah. Melyonim v'sachtonim, from both the higher and the lower beings. And who is the one that can deal with this? Only the lower ones. Now we are here, and we are dealing with the darkness, and we overcome the darkness. We are able to reveal the light that is hiding there. This is why it states in Raya Mehemne, in the Zohar, that the questions, a problematic query, emanates from the side of evil. So again, this clarifies the question that we asked earlier, a few days ago, about this Zohar, when we say that this part of the Torah is considered that it comes from the side of the evil. And we ask, what does that mean? So that's what he clarifies. Not, God forbid, that the Torah comes from the evil. Every part of the Torah is pure godliness. But the idea of questioning something comes from the darkness. And although, yes, you come to a conclusion and clarifying, but until you come to the conclusion, there is a question. The question conceals the light. The challenge, that comes from the side of evil. The question is from the side of evil. And we clarify it and bring out the light. So this, we have a whole new understanding of what it means, and a whole new appreciation of what it means. When we study the Torah, we understand now why so many questions in the Talmud. And why, when we're dealing with those questions, we are fulfilling something amazing, not only here, but above us there also. That's what it says in Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. It says the Medrash that when we study Torah, Hashem considers as if we redeem God, because in a way Hashem is like in exile, in a state of exile, until we come and we study Torah and we clarify and we elevate those godly sparks. So this is the end of today's short Tanya share. Minutes Hashem, we will resume Sunday morning. We should all have a good Shabbos. And thank you for joining. Any questions we can take now?